The original plan for Lower Roxbury was that there wasn't going to be any Lower Roxbury. They were going to wipe it out. There were a number of demonstrations of grit by this community that no one expected. And I think basically what happened was that nobody thought that anybody was going to complain. And nobody thought that we were going to stay the course.
The neighborhood here was very vital, you know. There were shops and homes, and off on the side streets were many single and two-family homes.
There were certainly some black folks, there were some Jewish families, there were lots of Irish families. There was a huge brick Catholic church. There was a Jewish temple. And there was Cooper Community Center, and there was Deco Supply, and there was the Asa Gray School, as well as the Sherwin. Madison Park was a place where people just come and sit on the benches. There were always kids out there because there were houses all around the park.
We used to have a band concert in the summertime, and in the spring of the year, the boys used to have, what do they call it, relay races around.
And everybody would bring out their favorite 78 records and sit down and play them. And that's where we heard a lot of the jazz that we may not have gotten on the radio.
The city changed dramatically in the 50s for a lot of reasons. I mean, population declined in the city. If you looked at that park in 1960, everything around it was abandoned. It was just gone. I mean, empty, broken down house, shell houses. That could have been rehab, except the problem was back then no one knew much about doing rehab. They just knew how to tear it down and build it again.
Low-income communities like Lower Roxbury were valued only by the people who lived and worked there. The city withdrew services from the area, housing deteriorated, and trash piled up. People from Boston and beyond used it as a free dumping ground.
And one of the first things that we organized around was to get the city to clean up Lower Roxbury and to prevent people from dumping. We cleaned up a chunk of Madison Park and we piled it all up in a big pile of garbage. We were going to burn it as a protest. And this garbage starts to burn, and the firemen turned their fire hoses on the protesters. And so the next day in the Boston Globe and the other newspapers, there were pictures of black people being hosed by white firemen.
An embarrassed city agreed to clean up the trash in Madison Park. But in the minds of urban planners, there would be no Madison Park for very long. They viewed Lower Roxbury as the best and cheapest site for a new highway called the Inner Belt, which would link Interstate 95 with the Southeast Expressway. They also wanted to build a huge 58-acre campus high school and declare the whole community an urban renewal area. Residents were alarmed when they learned that it wasn't just abandoned buildings that would be taken.
And when we found out that the BRA was coming to level the houses and take the land, we started saying, well, where are we going to go?
Well, it was going to be about 360 or so homes were taken. So the people want to know, where will we go if you take our homes? And I think that's the thing that set the fire going on. What shall we do about homes in the area?
The community elected two residents to lead the organizing effort, Shirley Smolinski and Ralph Smith. The group officially became the Lower Roxbury Community Corporation in 1966, with Ralph as executive director. To help in their work, the LRCC turned to Urban Planning Aid, an advocacy group of city planners, architects, and academics.
What was presented to the neighborhood was that they would have to leave, that there would be this beautiful new high school, and they should be very thankful that the city would have a new high school, even though they wouldn't be able to use it and they would lose their homes. So what they felt, and we began to explore with them, was why do they need that much land? That's an awful lot of land for a high school. And why can't we still stay here? Why can't there be a high school and housing? And therefore the process started of developing alternatives. which is something the city was not expecting, was not used to, that we would come back with plans and models and say, well, gee, that was a nice high school, but isn't this high school and housing even nicer?
After a bitter fight, the city agreed to scale back the school to 35 acres and find a developer to build replacement housing. But the residents became concerned when they researched subsidized housing in other parts of the city and saw its poor design.
We got to that point where we said, well, we want to say what kind of housing. We want to have a say in who builds it. And next, Lower Roxbury said, we don't want to be a sponsor. How can we become developers? And the members of Urban Aid said, you can become the developer by hiring a development consultant.
And we explored the opportunities for them to be the developers and to own it and to manage it. And it was just very exciting, and people got very heady and feeling a sense of just a dream. And we had a lot of very difficult meetings with the redevelopment authority and the mayor, who would totally dismiss them. And finally, they just won over, got the commitment from the city.
This was the first time any community group in the country had been designated a developer in an urban renewal area, and the LRCC became a national model for how community organizations could gain control in the urban renewal process. Stopping the highway from going through their community was another first. The LRCC was part of a broad coalition that successfully opposed the plan, and this became the only section of Interstate 95 from Maine to Florida that was not constructed. But their primary focus was building new housing. The Madison Park Development Corporation, LRCC's development arm, oversaw the creation of Madison Park Village, a new community which provides 526 homes for the area. It was Ralph Smith's determination and vision that got the job done.
Madison Park Village as a name is not an accident, because of the Madison Park Village was the utopia that Ralph wanted to create in Lower Roxbury that would replace all the things that the BRA had taken when, you know, all the stuff was torn down.
The rebuilding began with the completion of Smith House in 1973. Named after Ralph, it has 132 homes for senior citizens. Haynes House, named for Vinnie Haynes, came next. 131 homes designed for small families. The village expanded once again in 1978 with Madison Park 3 and 2 years later with Madison Park 4, a total of 263 townhouses.
Madison Park is a special place. People who live here will tell you that it's a special place. Tennis, and you've got this, you know, these nice green spaces, and because of Ralph, there are lots of plantings, and the houses, you know, fit, and they've got space, and they're back from the sidewalk, and folks know each other.
When Danette Jones became executive director in 1988, Madison Park faced a new set of challenges.
The properties had been built in various stages since 1972, and as any aging piece of real estate, were in need in general of a financial overhaul and a physical overhaul. The people also really came to us and said, we need to do something about the economics. We need better jobs. We need to be able to take care of our kids better. I worked to develop, in collaboration with the residents, a number of human capital development programs. These include the youth after-school program, several senior citizen programs, workforce development programs, including a computer literacy and training project.
We've also had other initiatives where we go out into the greater community and we take on problems and issues that need to be solved. We advocate for housing, we advocate for better public safety, and because the residents kind of determine what the initiatives will be, it kind of helps build consensus and empowerment.
Madison Park also undertook a major new project with Trinity Financial and the City of Boston.
The redevelopment of Orchard Park was such an important part of revitalization of the Lower Roxbury community. That project was the most devastated and most dilapidated piece of real estate within the Boston Housing Authority's portfolio. It's now a totally revitalized community.
I came here in 44, right when I was like 2 years old. I guess then really came involved in 1985. I was motivated because I felt like you want something better for your kids. And even though we were back and down and the drugs came in and took over, I figured, one day that it wouldn't always be like that.
Across from Orchard Gardens will be the first new K-8 school built in Boston in 70 years. A new park will be built there as well. Part of Madison Park's success comes from highly committed and stable leadership. There's a dedicated staff that has grown in recent years. Board members like Vincent Haynes and Beryl Roach, who founded the organization, remain actively involved. Ralph Smith led the organization for 20 years, and Danette for 10. Jean Pinato joined Madison Park in 1998.
I took the job as executive director because Danette was leaving a real jewel of an organization. The organization had been around for 35 years. It was a very stable, mature organization. It was in great shape financially, and there was a platform then for the organization to grow and to move into other areas, including home ownership, housing, economic development programs, expanding our youth programs, and organizing efforts.
Madison Park has always had the goal of increasing home ownership in a neighborhood that has the lowest ownership rates in the city. Beryl Gardens, completed in 1998, is a limited equity co-op for 20 families. Shawman Estates provides 15 homes for first-time buyers. Davenport Commons, an innovative partnership among Madison Park, Trinity Financial, and Northeastern University, created 60 new homes for first-time homebuyers, the largest new homeownership project in recent memory. In addition, 125 apartments were built for Northeastern students, hopefully relieving some of the demand for student housing in Roxbury. Madison Park has also taken on commercial development as part of the revitalization of Dudley Square.
We had acquired the Woolworth building several years ago and now have leased it to 45,000 square feet of tenants and are undergoing a $7 million renovation. In addition, we purchased Hibernian Hall, another commercial building in Dudley that has a former ballroom. It was an old Irish dance hall, and our vision is to transform that old historic building and bring it back to its use as a real cultural and community center. Because we take a holistic approach to community development and economic revitalization, arts and culture are an important component of that. And our Act Roxbury initiative is a very important cultural economic development initiative. The arts are important not only because they celebrate culture and uplift the spirit of a community, but also artists are viable businesses. Promoting the art and cultural-based businesses are a very important part of our mission.
My hopes and dreams for the area is that the residents will develop the same kind of sense of pride that we had, and hopefully will not face this life alone and say, oh, I'm just concerned about me, but be concerned about the whole community.
And I hope that love of community continues into the future. I think people may think love is kind of a hokey word to talk about work and hard work and difficult work. But I do believe that that is what guides the work of true community activism. It's love of community and it's love of people.